let's talk about a couple of things that really fascinate me on this.
Okay.
Scurvy. Scurvy. Now, as an English, I was always taught about scurvy. I was always told that, yes, there used to be a thing called scurvy, and that's why we used to eat limes. We taught this in history in English schools, and that's why we were called limeys, et cetera, et cetera. But I thought of scurvy as like, oh yeah, you get kind of pains in your bones and something. No, it's incredible. Tell us what scurvy is.
Yeah, so I had the same impression as you. I had some vague notion of scurvy, like doesn't it says your gums get kind of swollen, and and did that happen on Antarctica? But so when I started to read about this, I thought, I don't think I've ever read actually like a vivid, meticulous forensic accounting of what scurvy is and does to you. And it so happens that on this expedition, they suffer one of the worst outbreaks of scurvy ever recorded in maritime history. So you have their journals and their diaries and their letters, and you can depict what happened. So as they're coming around Cape Horn in the storm, they need everybody possible to operate these ships if they're going to survive. And yet many of them can no longer rise from their hammocks. Their skin is kind of changing colors. Then their teeth begin to fall out. Then their hair begins to fall out. And then the craziest part is the cartilage that seemed to kind of connect the bone seems to be coming undone. So there's an account of one seaman who had fought in a battle 5 decades earlier where he had broken a bone. Now, obviously, over 5 decades, that bone had long since healed. And suddenly, inexplicably, it shatters again in the very same place. Their bodies seem to be just coming undone. And then the other thing I didn't know about it was that it affected your senses. And to me, that was what was one of the more striking. They would have these kind of delusions and then this total despair. One seaman described it as the disease got into our brains and we went raving mad. And of course, what they didn't know was that the cure was so simple that all they needed was more vitamin C. They needed more fruits and vegetables on their diet. They didn't have refrigeration then, so they didn't bring a lot of fruits and vegetables on a ship. In fact, they didn't bring any. So they're suffering. And it was interesting when I was writing about this. It was right I was working on this chapter during COVID, and it was at the beginning of COVID. I remember that we would have these packages, coming to the door, and we didn't know, like, can we bring the package inside? Can we open the package? And so I was writing about them suffering from scurvy, and I had such a great, empathy almost, like, because they have no idea what's causing it. They're like, is it our breath? Is it because we're touching? Is it in the air? Do we need to get buried in sand? Like, what do we need? And, but yes,
And that was after they had typhus. That was after
yes,
the entire ship
yes,
had gone under with typhus. Also, another disease that they had no idea where it was coming from. So
no,
they are subjected in this endless voyage, not endless, but risky voyage to two unbelievably awful diseases that ravages them. What percentage of the seamen were dead by the end of the scurvy outbreak?
yeah. It's hard to have a precise tally because there were people who died of typhus and then who died of scurvy. And then there were also people died from accidents, but hundreds and hundreds. The ships were being depleted by half of their complement.